Good afternoon, YouTube. I'm creating this video because I found this interview on CBC on YouTube, and I found it particularly moving. This lady had the unfortunate experience of passing through COVID. Fortunately, she did survive, and she's on the road to recovery. But I thought that her interview was very moving, and I thought that I would share it with all of you, and I hope that you can see how deeply moving it is, and something like a warning will come out of this video. But I just wanted you to see. Thank you for watching.
As I said, from Montreal area, 42 years old. I am just so delighted to welcome you to the program, Melanie, and to see you here. And you look well, and I'm really happy to. How are you feeling, number one?
It's a hard question to answer. Honestly, I feel right now this is my 11th day, and I feel like I have a really, really bad cold. I'm very congested. My lungs still hurt. But I feel like I'm 100 times better than I was last week at this time. So I'm counting my blessings.
Isn't that great? So hopefully, with fingers crossed, the end is in sight. But as you say, on day 11 of all of this, and we're going to hear your story of being diagnosed and dealing with COVID-19. When you woke up, and if you have to cough, that's okay. I as you said, your lungs. But you woke up when you became sick with this, as you said, 11 days ago. I understand it was a little scratch in your throat. And then tell us how quickly this illness progressed.
So I went to bed Thursday night. I remember even telling my partner that, I feel the strongest that I've ever felt in my life. And it's hard to believe that, a healthy person can get this. And then the next morning I woke up with a scratch in my throat. And within 20 minutes, I had a full-blown fever, almost at 40 degrees. My body was shaking. I was coughing. My lungs hurt. I got all those symptoms all at once, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I had no time. I didn't know what to do. I had no time to prepare anything or make arrangements. It happened that fast.
So what did you do? Did you go to the hospital? Did you sought doctor's help? Anything?
So I work for the healthcare system. And so in my head, I was trying to calm myself down. And I said, okay, I think I know what this is. I know the symptoms. We're trained for this, right? So we have all the numbers. We know who to call. We know what to do in case of these types of, things happen. And so I called all the numbers that they had given me. And it was the most scariest, probably the most scariest time of my life, because I realized that the numbers that they had given me weren't working. Nobody was answering. I was on hold for about an hour before I actually spoke to somebody to get a test. And then they wouldn't test me. They said that because I hadn't traveled, they wouldn't test me.
So you know how badly you're feeling. You know what you're likely dealing with, but you don't get the definitive diagnosis. Have you ever had the definitive diagnosis to this point?
I did, but eventually I did. Yes. I spoke with the man on the phone for a good half hour, and I, pretty much told him everything I could to get that test, and finally he agreed. And then he said he'd send me an email confirmation that somebody would call me within a couple days to get a test. So that initial call from a nurse takes about 48 hours, 2 to 3 days before they call you to even give you an appointment to get tested.
So that you're really revealing some of the problems with the whole testing mechanism that so many people have talked about. But let's get right to how you're feeling. That's one part of the story. You're the first person whom I've spoken who is now recovering from, thankfully, COVID-19. What does it feel like, Melanie?
I feel like I dodged a bullet. I feel like it could have been me that died. It was so bad.
The pain?
The pain, the loneliness, the shame, the everything, the not knowing, the not getting answers, the not having anybody to talk to, the no doctors available. The nurses that I called sometimes gave me wrong information. sometimes they told me that I didn't have it because they thought it was just a cold. But how can you say that on a telephone call? So all of that, I thought I wasn't going to make it out, and I'm so thankful that I did.
There were times it got that bad that you thought you weren't going to make it through?
Yeah.
Tell me about the pain. It's burning, or what does it feel like in your lungs?
Well, the lung pain, it feels sort of like every day I would wake up and I would feel like I have a little bit less capacity to inhale. I couldn't, I couldn't hold my breath for even 3 seconds. I couldn't take in as much oxygen as I wanted to. Even just speaking to somebody, like even now, I'm starting to sweat because I feel like I still can't get enough oxygen in my lungs. It's a very scary feeling. And the pain is like, it was as if somebody was stabbing me in the back in my chest area where my lungs are, as if I had about 1,000 knives in there just pressing up against there. And no matter what I did, the pain would just not go away. Like it was just there constantly.
And was there any treatment offered to you? I mean, there is no cure or treatment that we know of right now.
No, I was not. I'd never even seen a doctor, honestly.
Still,
I've been in isolation.
Yes.
I have been in isolation since they told me to stay home because I was positive. I have not seen a doctor.
You said it.
The only way to talk is if I go to the hospital.
Yes. You said something really interesting. You feel shame. How so?
Yes. Well, not anymore, obviously, but at the beginning I felt when they called me, first of all, I was the only person that I knew that contracted this, and I felt like it was a death sentence, and I felt like maybe I had infected somebody else and that I shouldn't talk about it, or not knowing, like not intentionally. I would never do that intentionally, but I felt like maybe I did. And I had no one to talk to, and I felt like this is something I needed to keep to myself.
Well, I'm so glad you're not keeping it to yourself, because your message is so strong to the people who are watching. There you are, a beautiful woman of 42, healthy as can be, and very nearly felled, or potentially felled by this, and frightened, and understandably. You know, we've been reporting this morning, Melanie, on a survey that was done that talks about Canadians, how about 1 in 8 still think this is overblown, that it's not a big deal, that, you know, they're not taking it seriously enough, and therefore they're not doing the behavioral things that we've been asked to do. What would your message be to them?
My message to them is to take this very, very seriously, that this is not a joke. It could happen to anybody. And if you think for 1 second that you feel so strong and that you have a strong immune system, or that you don't even get a common cold, this is not what you think it is. It's not. This is real. This is happening. This is killing people. You don't want to get this. If you get this and you need to go to the hospital, you might not make it out. And if not for you, think about other people. Your mom, your grandmother, the older population, people who have compromised immune systems. Those are the people most vulnerable. Just because you get it doesn't mean it's a death sentence, but it is for other people.
It's so important to hear. Day 11, Melanie, and 14 is coming up, and hopefully you'll get those.
I want to stop it there. This lady has extraordinary, I want to say extraordinary strength, but I'm really trying not to sound like, I want to keep it as real as possible. This was the first time I ever felt actually afraid of COVID, just because her description is very sincere, very severe. She is an individual that, you know, I think she may have been in healthcare all her life. So she is not, she's on the front line, so to speak. So she's not afraid. It's like occupational hazard, you know what I mean? as a nurse or a doctor, you understand that, you know, you'll always have a job, but in times like this, you can't just walk away from what your responsibilities are. And I'm sure she handled it like everything else. She handled it very strong, very brave, and she wasn't afraid. But from her description, this is easily one of the worst experiences of her life. And she felt, I'm sure during the sickness, she felt 100% convinced that she could die. And it is that kind of reality that she faced. And I'm sure she was very afraid and definitely alone. So, you know, it's terrible. And I always felt that our government wasn't doing enough. I felt that the healthcare system wasn't doing enough. But that was just a suspicion, because given the competence of these people who are supposed to help us in the past, and I'm specifically talking about the government, they've handled it with sheer incompetence even long before we got hit by coronavirus. And the fact that the population is being infected at this rate now is the consequence of their actions and their decisions to be careless, to leave the borders open, to leave the medical scanning and whatnot at the borders completely defenseless. There is no emergency precautions that are taken in Canada to prevent the infected or supposedly infected from entering this country. And essentially, if you want to have a breakdown of how things went, I mean, you can hear her testimony. No nurses, no doctors. People would give her fake information, wrong information. As far as the government's concerned, there's a COVID bailout, you could say. She never even accessed it. She's probably not even going to apply for it. COVID hits you so fast, within a few days, you could be dead. So, and, you know, you'll be a statistic in the Canadian victims of COVID-19, of coronavirus. And that's really scary. The fact that right now there are flights coming in from China at this moment. There are flights coming from England at this moment. So Canada, I can say with perfect confidence, Canada, the government of Canada has left us defenseless. And I see many, many more infections on the horizon. And I think that the isolation period will be far longer than any of us will admit. I'm thinking upwards of a year, probably far longer than that. So there's a lot of information that I want to share with you about COVID, but really all that matters is that everybody takes into extreme caution this virus and does everything in their power to maintain their health, their distance from others. Do whatever you have to do to protect yourselves, your family. There will be a lot of danger on the horizon. My hope is that China, that started this virus, and that people are becoming more and more aware that they're trying to hide the real nature of how it came into this world. But the dead don't care if you're, you know, what your reasons are. But we should care. And there is something here that I found extremely compelling, and that's it seems that with the coronavirus, there's pretty much nothing that anyone can do. But you can socially support each other. You can talk to people, even if you might be close to death, as long as you have access to your family or to somebody, anybody to talk to. That's the key. So social distancing has its purpose, but you can never lose contact with your family, especially with the technology in this time. So we should make good use of it. But at the same token, this interview really, really scared me. There's nothing more terrifying than seeing somebody strong, somebody who, I wouldn't say she thought she was invincible, but she knows herself. And she feels confident in the face of many different dangers that accompany a job working in the hospital. So what can I say? This is a person who is probably in good health, very strong. She's in no way vulnerable, you could say, to the occupational hazard of her job. So, my fellow Canadians, there should be a reckoning for the irresponsible actions of this government. But also, please don't forget that in this time of crisis, how poorly they managed the situation, and that their inaction and irresponsibility led us to this moment. Trudeau is not a leader, not worthy of Canada. And his policies, his ignorance, he doesn't care what happens to you, I tell you. Only how he looks in front of the press. And I hope that he will pay the price one day for that irresponsibility, that power should be removed immediately from him. But there are many things that you can blame back and forth, but mostly, please keep yourself safe. Do whatever you have to do to protect your family. And don't isolate completely from society. We can stay in touch with each other with the technology we've got. And even with social distancing, you can still practice a conversation with someone. But yeah, this crisis weighs heavy on me. I do thank you for your time, and I wish you well, whomever is watching. Bye-bye.